hour is here.
Check it out.
And you're locked on to Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio station.
It's my station. It's my station.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, welcome on in, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hans and Scotty, hope you're all well. Let's get it, folks, and we are out and about today. And, look, we love all of our locations. We love all of our clients. We got a really big one we're going to talk about coming up next week. Got a fun one coming up on Friday as well. But today we are down here in Orem at Chubby's. Come on by and let's go. We got food for days.
If you have not tried Chubby's, this is your chance to come in and get grubbies at Chubby's. Because it is so good, man. Their entire menu is absolute perfection. And you just talked with Will.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you're getting to know Will a little bit, because Will is one of my favorite people on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Humble, incredible culinary mind. He and his wife, Erin, have been so good to my family. They've employed my girls, and they've worked so close with them, and Will's been a mentor to them, and I just love them, and I love this family. But I love the food. And all relationships aside, this is the best food that you're going to find in Orem or Provo. In fact, I got a call from Brian Estridge. His son is playing baseball for Air Force. Air Force is scrimmaging BYU, I guess, on Saturday. And he's like, where do I go? Provo and Orem. I'm like, there's only one place. It's Chubby's.
Yeah.
You think about it. I mean, in Provo and Orem, there's just not a lot of places. I said, well, where did you go the last time you were in Provo? He said, well, Jeff Reynolds sent me to Ruby River.
What?
And I was like, whoa, Jeff. I said, no. Now, Chubby's wasn't around back the last time TCU showed up here in Provo, I don't think. I know they weren't here in the Orem location.
You know, there's this great place that does breakfast called IHOP. You'll really love it.
Oh, my gosh. You're going to just get the pancake stack.
Yeah. This thing's called Moon Over Miami, or Miami.
You're going to love it.
It's great.
It's a sandwich. It's got melted cheese and egg on it. You're going to love it. But,
Jeff,
you come out to Chubby's and just kind of enjoy some. And how about we do this, Scotty, just to kick this off? And we'll do it quietly. You cannot be in the building.
Nope.
You cannot currently be in the building. But first person that shows up and comes in and, just come in and enjoy this food, you're going to get a Jake Retzlaff signed BYU.
Ooh, we're going right out of the gate with this
autograph ball. And if you'd like, Scotty will sign it as well. But no, this thing is sweet. It's a Big 12 BYU logoed football.
Yes.
It's one of those leather-sided footballs.
And it's inaugural season in the Big 12. It has that embroidered in it. I mean, it's a beautiful football.
And Jake Retzlaff right there, man, number 12. And you get it. First person to come in.
We are in the Orem location. There's a lot of Chubbies up and down the Wasatch Front. This one in Orem, 1087 South, 750 East. Just type in Chubbies Orem into your phone, and it'll bring you right by here. But we're giving the football away right now.
Can't be in the building.
Cannot be here.
Is it weird to you what triggers you? Like, are there things
that makes me upset?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Especially the older I get, the more triggered I get.
Jake and Ben just triggered me.
Uh-oh. What'd they do?
Triggered me. They did their draft.
Oh, no.
And they did hard rock bands.
Yeah?
They did not take AC/DC.
How do you not take AC/DC?
You got 10 picks. I was driving in my car, and I was breathless.
All right, so is Christian back there? Lloyd? I would like to know the 10 bands.
It still took the air out of me.
They did not take AC/DC.
They didn't take AC/DC. I still can't believe what I listened to. Like, Jake picked some dorky band like Pantera or some garbage at the. Nobody took AC/DC. Metallica off
Rancid,
the board. Guns N' Roses.
Not Pantera.
He took Rancid.
Rancid?
He took
Rancid
Red Hot Chili Peppers before AC/DC.
Red Hot Chili Peppers is not a hard rock band either.
They are not a hard rock band.
No, they don't classify as hard rock.
I punched my radio. The radio in my Sonata might not work.
So,
Christian, I want you to give Scotty the 10
If you've got the lists of each of their top 5, I would love to hear this.
I'm triggered.
AC/DC would be my number 1 overall pick.
So Metallica would be my number one. AC would be number 2.
So, okay, Metallica's off the board. Yeah, probably. Okay. Yeah, fair.
But AC/DC is either 1 or 2.
So if you had the number 1 pick, you take Metallica. I'm taking AC/DC.
And then I go Guns N' Roses. Those are the top
GNR.
3. But you can't.
Jake loves GNR, so I got to imagine that left.
Well, yeah, it did, but Ben got it, I think.
Okay.
All right, Christian, let's roll.
Get this.
Okay, so to clarify, it was specifically bands that rock, not necessarily hard rock bands, but just like bands that get upstage and rock. Ben had the number 1 pick. He went Metallica, Guns N' Roses, The White Stripes, The Who, and Iron Maiden. Jake, he went Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Motley Crue, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Rancid.
Can you believe this?
Wait a minute. Nobody took Guns N' Roses?
Yeah, they did. Ben had it number 2, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ben had it number 2. And but no AC/DC.
The White Stripes over AC/DC.
Yeah. So, it's a sad state of
Rancid.
affairs when these things happen on our airwaves. And, there's nothing I could do. I left my phone at home. Otherwise, I would have called in.
Did they even mention
I
it?
keep forgetting my phone.
Did they even mention it?
No, they didn't. They never mentioned it.
Okay. So they
Not even a mention.
But they prep for this stuff. It's not like Christian just throws it out there. All right, ready, go now.
No, they know the
No, they've had
topics.
time to prepare for this.
For instance, they did the dual quarterback rooms, best all time in the NFL. I thought they did a great job with that. I thought it was a great draft, and I thought that they did a great job with that. They just murdered bands that rock.
The Rock.
Yes,
murdered it.
Bands that rock.
That's
I'm just making sure because it's not like actual rock bands. It's bands. Hey, they thought, hey, that rocks.
Oh, that's
All right.
AC/DC.
Well, and I'd also say, okay, if you're going by that, so it sounds like it's got a concert element to it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, who you go watch and you go away being like, that was awesome.
Like you could say Guster. That rocked.
No, I would not. So Guster does not rock.
Lloyd.
Guster is. But I will say, if you want to go off, if you want to take a left turn here, as far as just pure entertainment, one of the top 2 or 3 best concerts was Garth Brooks.
Garth Brooks is great. Elton John was amazing.
Yeah.
That concert we went to with Garth, I'd say, you know what? That rocked.
Garth was incredible. Elton was incredible.
So if you're just looking at, that's why you got to tighten this thing up a little bit.
You're going to love this. So I get a call from my second daughter, Mackie.
Yeah.
Who's playing volleyball at Treasure Valley Community College in Oregon.
Former employee of Chubby's.
And she said, yes, that's correct. And she says to me, hey, Dad, do you know the band Korn?
Oh, jeez.
And I said, yeah. Why? And she's like, oh, well, we just got assigned to work security for it. Because her volleyball team is working some security stuff.
Okay.
The coaching staff had no idea what Korn was.
What?
And they assigned the women's volleyball team
Oh, that's a bad
to
idea.
work security at Korn.
That's not good.
So she calls me. She's like,
she needs to be working security at Guster. She does not need to be working security at Korn.
I said,
Can't be bouncing around on that.
I said, baby, what did they have you doing? Well, they had me on the front row. I was making sure people weren't crowd surfing at a Korn concert.
Wow.
Freak on a leash. You want to talk about bands that rock? They'll light you up.
Oh, yeah.
You need to know your audience and know your personnel.
Lloyd, picture my Mackie J. Front line at a Korn concert. She's like, Dad,
Now,
there's some really scary people.
I will
like,
say, if there's one person that could hold her own, it'd be Mac.
Well, yeah. Out of my daughters, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She could absolutely chuck some people. But, man, I do not want her working front lines at a Korn concert.
No, you do not.
And which, by the way, Korn would be a pick before 3 or 4 of the picks.
I would take Korn before Rancid.
Yes.
What about Rage Against the Machine?
Man, that's got to be in your top 5.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I did go to a Rage concert.
Great concert.
They opened. Tool would be great, but Rage opened for U2. Do you remember that tour in 96, 97?
Yeah, I was doing the 2-year thing, but I had buddies that were like, "You won't believe what we just saw, U2 and Rage."
Did I tell you the story about how
It was at Rice Eccles, right?
me and some teammates drove to Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Because we had a buddy that had an in at the facility, and we talked our way all the way up to the front lines. We wore security shirts. We got in for free. We were all up the front. I took off the security shirt and did mosh pit for 2 hours.
Nice.
And got sweaty. banged around some people.
I would imagine.
Like, that's bands that rock.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Rancid.
I'm surprised you didn't go 311, man. Hey, do we have somebody?
They triggered.
Did you just come in?
There it is.
You weren't
man.
already here, were you?
How cool is that giveaway? Isn't that awesome?
I love it, man.
Awesome.
So the football's off the board. We got a lot of shirts. We got a lot of hats we're going to be giving away throughout the show today. But make sure to stop by and hang out with us. We are live here at Chubby's, 1087 South, 750 East in Orem. Let's get it done. Time to kick it off. Your starting lineup right now, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Hans and Scotty G.
Let's go!
The lineup is set, and it's time to kick off the show with the biggest topic of the day. This is the starting lineup on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It is time for your starting lineup, Hans, as we get you ready for another weekend of college football.
College football is going to be incredible this weekend. Obviously, a little early kick on Friday night, BYU, Oklahoma State, and then we'll get into some of these other games. Utah trying to right the ship against TCU, and Utah State trying to right the ship in conference play, too.
Yep, big one against Bronco Mendenhall making his return to the state of Utah. I know he's done it already with Virginia, but still, it'll be fun to get Bronco back in the state.
So we'll jump into some college football talk, but I wanted to see, did you catch a little bit of the Jazz?
I did see a little bit of the Jazz.
Well, it was good to see Sacramento kind of going full lineup. They really pushed Sabonis. They pushed DeRozan.
Yep, and Sabonis did Sabonis things last night.
And he did Sabonis things. He's really good. Murray and Fox on the court, spending a lot of time. And the Utah Jazz, I think, kind of rolling out the lineup that I'm kind of expecting. Mm-hmm. Keontae George, Colin Sexton, Walker Kessler, Taylor Hendricks, and Lauri Markkanen, and pushing them for some minutes, averaging probably 27 minutes apiece for those starters. And they end up getting the win. I think that Sacramento was engaged, would disengage. I think that the Jazz are trying to figure out rotations, but some of their first rotators were Collins, Williams, and Clarkson, and you can tell that they're trying to figure out their timing.
I need you to tell me what I've been telling you like crazy about pumping the brakes.
Yeah.
Walker Kessler's taking another step.
Yeah. Looks to be. He looks to be. Looks like he knows his role at least. It doesn't look like he's trying to get outside of what he's good at.
I think there's a shot there.
Do you?
I think there's a shot there. I'm obviously really crazy high on Keontae George. I think he takes another step. I'm still struggling with Taylor Hendricks.
Taylor Hendricks, I think, is going to be more of a project. I'm still giving him a couple of years on a leash.
That's going to be one that you don't want to see and make huge demands for right now.
Well, right, because if you were to just say, I don't think it's him, and then you give him up for a donut, and he goes out there and becomes what we think he might become, then you're going to be kicking yourself.
Yeah.
So you really need to squeeze the juice out of this just to make sure you're not giving up a potential stud because he's got all the physical makeups to be that potential stud. So you don't give him away until you know exactly what
Depends on the donut, but
if it's if
Bavarian cream.
It's one of those Bavarian, if it's one of the classic maple bars.
Yeah.
But Walker Kessler's doing some good things. He's there. He's definitely a shot blocker.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We know that.
And that's the element that he just needs to focus in on and say, look, I am a defender. And as soon as you embrace the role of, you know what, Rudy Gobert is making a ridiculous amount of money in this league with no offensive game whatsoever. Now, Walker Kessler has somewhat of an offensive game. Rudy Gobert has nothing, and he's going to go down as one of the highest paid players in NBA history.
Right.
Because why? He alters a game defensively. Walker Kessler may not be able to alter a game at the Rudy Gobert level, but he sure as hell can alter a game in some way, shape, or form, and with his defensive presence. And when he embraces that and goes all in on that, watch out.
Well, and I think that there is such a dramatic need for it where we're seeing these bigs that are constantly in the MVP race now with Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, and you've got these bigs that move well, that distribute well, and you've got to have a guy that can rotate to the point of attack and then move towards the pass because these guys pass so stinking well.
Flash to the 3, drop back in the paint. You got to be able to do all of that.
Right, but you also have to have a little bit of offensive ability because that's why at some point when they let go of Rudy Gobert, I just didn't bicker. I didn't argue, even though his number is going to be in the Delta Center Raptors and
the Hall of Fame.
When they moved him, it was like, okay, yeah, because you still have to have offensive ability. And you see some of that you definitely see more of that from Walker Kessler than you ever saw from Rudy. So I've got hopes on that. But then there's also hopes of me with Hendricks that he can become more of that. Because, Hendricks is going to try to go take those threes.
Yeah. And
he's still got the length that he can move in for help defense. And he still he's a high motor guy.
I do. And this is a product of youth, too. I do worry about the body language a little bit when things don't go his way.
Which we did with Walker Kessler over the last 2 years. I'm hoping that changes with Walker.
And I think, I look at my own 13-year-old who plays football, and when things don't go his way, he is not happy, and he'll verbalize that. He shows it emotionally. And that's just, at the end of the day, we got to remember these guys came into this league as teenagers. Ash is 3 or 4 years older than Taylor Hendricks.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it like that, if you've got older kids that are in college and realize that, wait a minute, that kid who will call me on the weekends or come home and it'll be an emotional mess about something, and you're realizing, we're asking somebody of that age or even younger to play NBA basketball, you realize, okay, maybe I need to have a little bit of grace on their development and be a little bit more wary. So that's how I am on Taylor Hendricks. I just want that body language to look a little bit better. I just want them to, hey, it's okay. Keep the head up. Stay mature. You're going to be all right. And because there's some moments where it's like,
yeah,
calm it down, big fella. You can be okay.
Yeah, I think both those guys could definitely work on that. Wanted to throw some thoughts on Keontae George. I am seeing things from Keontae that do encourage me.
Yes.
I feel like there's more calculated purpose, a little bit more caution, but still explosion. I feel like he's at least weaving back into what you're going to need Keontae George to be. Keontae's got to be a dynamic scorer, but he's got to be a dynamic distributor.
Yep.
And I'm seeing parts of both, which gives me some optimism. So I'm hopeful with Keontae George. Okay, so we talked about he was just over 13 points a game, I think, last year.
Yeah.
And we talked about, well, where do we want him or where do we expect him? Well, I'd like to see him at 16. I'd like to see him somewhere around 16 to 16.5, 16.8 points per game. That's the number. That's the incremental step that I'd like to see him take.
He was 13 last year, right?
He was just over 13, I think.
Okay.
13.1 or 13
that's
points.
That's a fair ask.
Let me pull it up just so that I want to be really accurate on this. Keontae George averaged 13 points right on the head in the 23-24 season. And I don't think it's a stretch to ask him to hit that 16 to 16.5 because, remember, somebody's got to score.
Somebody's got to score the points. Yeah.
And Lowry's going to go get his, but somebody's got to score. Yep. And I'd like it to be Keontae George.
Agreed.
I feel like he's your second best scoring option next to Lowry. So I like what I'm seeing from him. Remember, you got one more preseason game against Portland, and then you're right into regular season.
And off we go. Here's the thing, and this is why I actually believe that you'll see this will not be the same team that you'll see come trade deadline, and I don't know if that's Markkanen or Kessler or whoever. They're not bad enough for Cooper Flagg. They're just not bad enough. They're not good, but they're not bad enough. And you wonder how much Danny Ainge is like, gosh darn it, these guys are a little bit better than I thought. Well, I'm going to have to go work the phones again because this team is not showing the capability of bottoming out the way that they're going to need to if they really want to hit a home run on that draft come next June.
Okay, so how good or how bad do you think they are right now? Because I'm going to tell you what you needed last year. Last year, you needed to be under 20 wins.
Yeah, this is a 28 to 33 win team.
That's a killer.
I know. That's where you're going to be, where you're at last year.
That puts you in that gray matter.
Yep, where you're picking anywhere from 7 to 11.
And I can't disagree with you at this moment.
Yeah.
Because Lowry's too good. Keontae's showing too much promise.
Yep, Kessler's going to take another step in his
Walker,
development.
Yeah, Walker, you didn't move your bench. So Jordan Clarkson's still going to win a couple games for you.
Yep. Let's do it. Hans and Scotty, they got to find a way, man.
Well,
just rip it apart.
Okay, but to that point. No,
but the thing is, you can't trade Lowry. Lowry can't go anywhere.
Yeah,
this
but
year.
to that point, at the trade deadline, you could find a way to move Jordan.
Yep, and Kessler.
You could find a way to move Kessler, and you could say at the trade deadline, you get to the trade deadline, and you're like, we've got 15 wins, or we got 12 wins, or we got 10 wins. And you get to that trade deadline, you're like, all right, we got to make an adjustment. We've either got to go in or we got to get out. And I think based on that, we could see an active trade deadline for the Jazz this season.
All right, Hans and Scotty right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's game week for the Aggies, and the Zone is getting you ready for kickoff. Bronco Mendenhall makes his return to the state of Utah as his New Mexico Lobos go head-to-head in Logan for a battle with the Aggies. Listen all week long for the best coverage of Aggie football, as well as your chance to win tickets to the game. Then catch all the play-by-play action, beginning with the Aggie pregame show this Saturday at 1 with a postgame show immediately following the game. Your home for all the play-by-play coverage of Aggie football is live on air, online, and on the KSL Sports app. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Ready, go. Some people want to reward the quarterbacks and receivers, but for Hans and Scotty, it's all about the big uglies up front.
Somebody's got to block them.
It's time to name this week's winner of the Hans Olsen Offensive Lineman of the Week. And now, here to announce this week's winner of the prestigious HOOLOW Award.
Good job, well done.
Here's Hans Olsen.
All right, Hans, it's time to hand out some hardware. We weren't able to get to it yesterday. We usually do it on Tuesdays, but we will hand out the award today. It is your weekly HOOLOW Award. The Hans Olsen Offensive Lineman of the Week goes to...
It's going to go Bruce Mitchell.
Bruce.
He is going to be the replacement for Connor Pay until Connor Pay is back, and he jumped on the scene against Arizona. You had two D tackles that combined for 4 sacks coming into that game. It was one of the areas that Arizona's pretty decent at, is attack in the middle of that offensive line. And Bruce Mitchell absolutely owned and destroyed him. Now, Bruce was a high school defensive lineman. Bruce came in as a defensive lineman. He's transitioned over to the offensive line. I think he's found his home, and I think he's a classic center.
But if anybody knows how difficult that is, that's you right there.
Yeah. I did. I made the switch in the NFL. I wish I would have done it at the college level, because it probably would have prepared me more for what my professional career was eventually going to be. But Bruce Mitchell finds a home right now. And what's interesting is Bruce is good enough that when Connor Pay comes back, because he's going to come back, whether it's the Utah game or the Kansas game, he's going to come back. What you do with Bruce Mitchell, because he's a guy that you got to play. But he's just a sophomore, so he's just kind of getting his ears wet in the game, and he's got all the skills. He's got the quick feet. He's got great hand placement. He's aggressive. Not a single missed snap. Scotty, he just stepped in.
Wow.
That's his first game as a center.
And that's a lot to ask a guy to come in and be like, all right, guess what? You're replacing a stud in Connor Pay. Ready, go. And he does it, and they don't miss a beat.
Yeah, he does it, and he just takes it to Arizona. So I was really happy to see that from Bruce. And I think that Arizona's got a much better defensive front than Oklahoma State does.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into some Oklahoma State film. I sent you a text. I'm disgusted by Oklahoma State. They're disgusting. It's embarrassing what they're doing right now. And I'm going to get into the details of it. Oh, and I know why Ollie Gordon is not rushing for 120-plus a game. I know, and I'm going to tell you. And we're going to get real frank and honest.
I got a sneaking suspicion it's not because of Ollie Gordon.
A lot of it is.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
He needs to have some ownership in
There's
this.
a lot of ownership in a lot of people right now. But I'll assign percentages, in fact, and Ollie will take on a solid percent of that.
Oh, good.
But I think Bruce Mitchell will open up a can against Oklahoma State's front. West Virginia brutalized Oklahoma State's defensive front.
Wow.
Embarrassed them.
So you're saying Arizona was way better than what they'll see this week?
As far as film goes, way better. As far as what the eyeball can see, way better.
Yeah.
Especially the D tackles. Now, they try to run this gimmicky three-man front, but they don't really trust and believe in their three-man front, so they use a defensive end that shifts down, not really into a three technique, but more of like a gap to 4-eye. And you're like, hey, make up your mind.
Yeah.
How about that? How about you make a decision on a defensive front? Are you going to try to go big and beefy and try to stop them, or you're going to kind of second-guess yourself and run a 6'3", 245-pound man at a 4-eye against Caleb Etienne? So that's what you want to do, huh? Because if that's what you want to do, I think Aaron Roderick is going to run roughshod on.
It just, it just blows me away. There's always teams that you don't think are going to be good that end up being good, and teams that you think they're going to be good that aren't so good. But Oklahoma State, usually you can set your watch to them being pretty good every year.
Yeah, but these two teams are the teams.
Yeah, they're the teams right there. Yeah, yep.
You've got the preseason number 1 rank or number 2 rank in the Big 12 versus the preseason number 13 or whoever you're paying attention to, number 15, 16.
Yeah.
And these two are just flip-flop reverse.
Makes no sense.
But Bruce Mitchell should have himself a heck of a game.
Well, as for the University of Utah, their offensive line, which needs to play a little bit better, they've got a big one coming up this week. We're going to chat coming up here in a bit with Steve Bartle, I think, is going to join us coming up here in a bit. But, that's one thing that I anticipated Utah would be better at. Is the offensive line. Is there inconsistencies at quarterback? Is that hurting it a little bit?
That's more than the offensive line. I'm actually going to stick up for the O-line just a little bit because Spencer Fano, I think he's the number 1 rated offensive lineman in the state of Utah right now.
So if we were to take a straw vote in terms of who might be, because everybody's got like the Heisman odds right now. So if we were to do the odds on the Hans Olsen Offensive Lineman Player of the Year, would Fano have the best odds?
Well, that's hard because do wins work into it? Like if BYU went and won the Big 12?
It's the Hans Olsen Award, so the pressure's on you.
Okay, well, I need to sit down and do some homework on it. Because Caleb Etienne and Braden Keim, you haven't heard their names because all they're doing is their job.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. We talked about Caleb Etienne at length last year. Why? Because he struggled.
Yeah.
Etienne.
Badly. Thank you.
Sorry.
Well, I appreciate your accuracies.
Yeah, I got you. Hans and Scotty, we're live here at Chubby's. Coming up next, we will chat with Steve Bartle, get his thoughts on Utah and what to expect from the Utes coming up this weekend. And then at 1 o'clock, we transition into nothing but BYU. It'll be Cougar football, your Cougar preview show from 1 to 3. Remember, tomorrow it's a Ute preview show, so we'll talk Utah from 1 to 3. And then Friday, a Football Friday with Alema Harrington and Ron McBride. It's all right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's official. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, is your official radio home of the Utah Hockey Club. When the puck hits the ice this fall, you'll hear every goal, every check, and every tension-filled moment right here on the Zone. Your exclusive home of the NHL and the Utah Hockey Club in Utah is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Covering the Utes better than anyone else. This is Ute Insider Steve Bartle of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard live here at Chubby's. Come on by, hang out with us. We're in Orem. Real easy to find, 1085 South, 750 East. Come by, grab yourself a bite to eat, and say hi to Hans. All right, joining us now, again, elite Ute insider for KSLSports.com. Nobody covers the Utes better, nobody gives you the better information, and nobody has the insight more than this guy. Steve Bartle, kind enough to join us. Steve, how you doing?
Hey, Steve.
What's up, fellas? How we doing?
Doing well.
Doing well, man. All right, so you just heard a cut from Mekhi Bernard. I don't know if you heard it or not back there in studio, but I think that what he said was pretty poignant in saying that now that we know it's Isaac Wilson, we don't spend all week preparing. Is it going to be Isaac? Here's this set of plays. Is it going to be Cam? Here's this set of plays. They know all week long what they're preparing for. How beneficial do you think that is for this team?
Yeah, I think it's going to be beneficial for everybody on that offense side of the ball, right? And I think you understand why Utah has gone about it the way that they have, given that Cam's injury status has been what it's been, in terms of him being close and all that. But I do think like this is just going to benefit the offense, in knowing that we know who the guy is going to be. We can develop a plan around him, and we don't have to worry about two separate game plans. And why would there be two separate game plans? Well, considering Cam's injury and being what it was, with that being his throwing finger on a finger on his throwing hand, that just impacted his ability to do certain things in the offense. So they had two different game plans for Cam and for Isaac, and I think what you'll see with Isaac moving forward is Utah getting back to more of that traditional offense that we've seen over the last couple of years, and I think that will benefit the tight ends, the running game, and I think you'll see more under center offense, and I do believe like it'll benefit the team. Now obviously they've got to go out and still execute and do all that, but I do think in terms of just their preparation, it is going to help them, being focused and centered on one game plan around Isaac. And obviously they'll have to go out Saturday and prove that point.
What do you think Cam Rising's future is?
Man, it's tough, right? I genuinely think there's a real possibility that we've seen the last of Cam Rising in a Utah uniform, and just given the circumstances of the mounting injuries that he's had in his career and where Utah is at, with Isaac Wilson and his future with the program, I just think. There's a decent possibility that we've seen him for the final time, in a Utah uniform, and that's tough to think about, right? Considering what he's given to the program, what he's done for the program, the heights that he's taken the program to, winning 2 Pac-12 titles, getting to the Rose Bowl, his incredible run against Ohio State in that game. He's taken Utah, he's elevated Utah to a higher level. Expectations have risen because he's been the quarterback, and yet just given where he's at with the injuries he's dealt with the last couple of years, I think there's a decent chance that we've seen him for the final time in a Utah uniform.
Have we seen him for a final time in a college football uniform?
That's going to be something that Cam is going to consider, and I know that there's interest in. On his end of getting into coaching. Maybe that starts next year. I don't know. And not necessarily at the college level. I know that he's really enjoyed, interacting with young adults, kids, high school kids, and getting into that. So I know that there's interest there. Perhaps he looks to take that next step. But there is certainly a chance that, he could elect to return and enter the portal and find somewhere else to finish perhaps his final 8th year of college eligibility. We'll see, but that is something that I know that has not been thought about much from his camp. I've reached out to certain folks, and I know that there hasn't been a whole lot of thought in what his future holds. He's obviously reeling from the injury and dealing with that. But we'll see, and that decision will come in the near future.
So, Scotty and I were just talking about the Utah offensive line, and I know that Spencer Fano's graded really high, and I went back and watched the offensive side of the ball against Arizona State, and I thought that Fano was fantastic. That score with Mekhi Bernard there in forgetting what quarter it was. Fano ran his guy about 6 yards and put him in the dirt.
Yep.
And so I think Spencer's looked really good. I feel like the Utah offensive line, for the most part, has not been the cause of some of the issues. And then we saw Mekhi Bernard kick it into a next gear against Arizona State. Can they start to lean on the offensive line and Mekhi maybe a little bit more now, Steve?
I think so. When you look at what this offensive line has done, you're right, Hans, that Spencer Fano is playing at an elite level. When you look at Pro Football Focus and how they've graded him, I know he's among the top 5, top 3 offensive tackles in all of college football. I'm pretty sure he has the highest run blocking grade in college football. And considering, Spencer Fano, that wasn't his strength coming into college, was being a tenacious run blocker. He was that athlete. He was the pass pro guy. And the fact that he's been able to add that element at such an accelerated rate, I think is huge for him and for the offensive line, but just the offensive line in general. And when you look at the top 10 highest graded players, I think they have 4 guys in the top 10. And Caleb Lomu on the other end is holding up his side of that left side, playing left tackle. He's doing a fair job. And I think with the interior 3, I think you can get more out of the offensive line in general. But I do think Utah's got to find balance. They've obviously need to produce more in the passing game because that will benefit the run game as well. So yeah, I think they can rely on the offensive line more. They've done well through these 6 games in providing Mekhi Bernard opportunities to rip off some of these bigger runs. He's been productive in just about every game. Going back to that Arizona game, he only had 16 carries, but was still averaging over 6 yards a pop and was really the only bright spot in that second half for Utah. I think that speaks a lot to the offensive line and how well they're blocking things up front. But in order to preserve that effectiveness with their run blocking, they do need to get more production and become more efficient in the passing game with Isaac Wilson moving forward.
Steve Bartle joining us right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We see Utah lose a game every now and then. What you don't see is Utah get out-physicaled very often. And Arizona State was the more physical team. And Scattaboo just continued to create problems. There were poor tackling. There were guys going high. It just felt like a very un-Utah-like performance. And especially coming off of bye week, it was really surprising to see that happen, Steve.
Yeah, it was, especially coming off the bye week, right? You have that extra time to prepare. But I do think, unfortunately, that the loss from the Arizona game just kind of hung over this team a little bit too long. And perhaps that had I think, carried into that game against Arizona State, just the lingering effects of that loss to Arizona. I do think there's been a realization, among the team and particularly on that defense side of the ball that, hey, we've got to get back to the basics. We've got to get back to the fundamentals, right? We're just seeing too many, missed tackles because they're not wrapping up, and it's so simple, right? Just get your arms around a guy and take him down to the ground. But you're just seeing guys too often, go for the shoulder blow and try to make the big hit. And I think just getting back to the basics, getting back to the fundamentals is so important for this defense. This defense is still playing at a really good level. It's a top 15 defense according to ESPN SPS Plus, and yet it's just 1 or 2 plays in this particular, in the second half especially, but 1 or 2 plays that are they break off for big plays, big gains that have broken the back of the Utah defense, right? They hold up for so long in these last 2 games, but then it's a big play through the air against Arizona. It's 2 big plays against Arizona State and Cam Scattaboo, and it's because they just got out of their fundamentals. They got out of their core principles, their tackling fundamentals, and they just needed to get back to that this week. And I think there's been kind of a refocus in that regard of getting back to the basics and just kind of hitting the reset button on this side of the ball. I think, again, there are good things happening. They need to play. They need to eliminate those 1 or 2 plays that break off for big plays. And then they also need to become better at generating takeaways. And I think that's the big focus for the defense this week.
All right, well, you got 2 Texas schools, TCU and Houston, 1 at home, 1 on the road before you get your second bye week and you're taking on your rival. Steve, I'm curious, what does the future look like now for Utah? With Isaac Wilson announced, and hopefully getting some of this defensive personnel. I don't know if there's any updates on Connor O'Toole or Corinne Reed or those guys. I know they play close to the cuff, but or to the vest. But what does the future look like for this Utah team?
Yeah, I think this moment this week is going to be kind of the pivotal moment of the season, right? Coming off of 2 losses, the expectations coming into the season. It's hard to see Utah getting into the title game. What does that do for this team? Now as they've lost their quarterback in Cam Rising, they make this move to Isaac Wilson. I do think we're going to look back at this week as kind of the pivotal moment of, does Utah bounce back? Do they, with their backs against the wall and ready to take on the adversity coming their way, or does this become too much for them? And I think, just talking to some of the players this week, it does sound like there's been a genuine kind of turning of the page, right? With Cam no longer in the equation, unfortunately, but the focus now with Isaac moving forward, I think there's been just a kind of a reigniting for this team in terms of what they need to do, right? And you hear it all the time from Kyle Whittingham, from players up there, that nobody's going to feel sorry for them, that they've lost 2 games. And that's something that this team genuinely embraces, that, hey, this is up to us. We got to determine, the response. It's not up to anybody else. It's up to us. And I think that's been something that this team has embraced. In regards to the players that we've talked to, I think there's a good chance that this team is able to kind of get back to their winning ways. And with the next 2 weeks with TCU and Houston, TCU has not played great this season. They just lost to Houston, who has been at the bottom of the conference. So you have 2 games to kind of right the ship, get into that next bye week, and then prepare for that final phase of the schedule, which is the most difficult phase of the season for Utah, with the way that BYU is playing, Colorado and Iowa State. And then you've got UCF, who is just, the way that they play, that's going to be a true test as well. So, Utah has to take advantage of these next 2 weeks, given that TCU has not played well, given that Houston is just a program that, is not ready to compete at a high level yet in the Big 12. Utah's genuinely got to hit the reset button this week and just get back to, what they do and get back to their winning ways.
Steve, you're the best, man. We appreciate it. Great stuff. Always at KSLSports.com. And look forward to catching up with you again here soon.
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate you guys.
There he is, Steve
Utes.
Bartle, Utah Insider, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
They have 2 very favorable games.
Yes.
And then a nice bye week. So it works out to where they can shake the kinks out with this quarterback change. But as he mentioned, you finish BYU at Colorado, Iowa State at Central Florida. That's, as far as Big 12 is concerned,
that's a rough stretch right there.
Really tough way to finish.
Yep. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.